All right, welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Chasing Ghosts. This is the video series that I do where I talk about those hard to find, those impossible to find books, those rare, really hard to find incentives or giveaways or convention exclusives that you just don't see, when you hit up your LCS. You don't see it up on the wall. You don't see it in their glass cases. You don't see it at most shows. These are some books that you might be able to find a couple of copies online, but realistically, these are not books that most people can add to their collection with any sort of ease. These are tough books to track down. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as all the other content I'm putting out here on Rennavision. If you are, please like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you don't miss any of the content that we got coming. Basically, something dropping every day, whether it be the live shows on Wednesday and Sunday or the recorded content, like I said, that I'm dropping at least once a day on all the other days during the week. Now, if you're curious about the books that I want to talk about this week for Chasing Ghosts, just hang on after the intro, and I'll be right back with the books. Okay, so as I teased a little bit last week with talking about some of those Marvel 50th anniversary incentives, I kind of want to talk about some more. I just kind of want to dig into them, so I'm going to just kind of focus in on specifically the 50 years of Marvel, the incentives, the 1 in 50s that came out in 2011, I believe it was November 2011, I think was the month when most of them came out, and just kind of go through, because every title basically had a pretty cool homage to another Marvel book, as well as it being a high incentive variant that is just really tough to track down. I mean, print runs were not that high, so these books were not easy to come by. And just the homages are pretty cool. Definitely pretty cool. I'm a fan of the homage, as long as it's not something overdone or just badly done. But that being said, I got a few books to talk about this week. So this is going to be another supersized edition. We're not going to do just the normal like 4 or 5 books. I think I actually got 8 or so in my lineup for today. So bear with me. We got a supersized edition of Chasing Ghosts coming your way. And we're going to kick it off right off the bat with Deadpool. Deadpool number 45. And again, this is a high incentive variant. This is a book that is an homage to, obviously, Ultimate Spider-Man 1. If you didn't know it right off the bat, there you go. You can see it, pretty clearly there. And it's just a well-done homage. I mean, I dig it. I dig it. The bright colors are bright. It looks like it. I love the borders. And it's Deadpool. Again, 1 in 50 incentive. All of these are going to be the same incentive. And I believe they all came out right thereabouts around November 2011. Sometimes shipping delays could have caused things to come out, a little off the mark. But for the most part, that's going to be a running theme that you see. This month is the month that they did this for the Marvel 50th anniversary celebration. Now, print run on this Deadpool book, estimated 26,260 copies. Yeah, it's not too big. It's not too big. So when you're talking about a 1 in 50 on a number like that, we're looking at about 525 copies. Rough estimate. 500 copies ain't a lot. And that's really the running theme that we've got through most of these books. Again, I'm going to run through about 8 of these, and these are 8 of the tougher to find, the lower printed copies. There are other incentives that I'm not covering here. I want to say there's like 25 or so there about different variants that you can go with in this complete collection, but I'm just going to go with 8 that I saw that had the lowest number that I could estimate print run wise, and are just tougher to find than the others. So with that being said, what's the census have on this one? Census has about 74 copies of this Deadpool 45, 25 9/8, 26 9/6, and then 11 9/4, and a few others scattered throughout. But like I said, this variant is not an easy one to track down. I mean, you look at what's actually listed for sale. There are 3. You got a 9/6. You got a 9/6 for $350, a CGC SS 9/6 for about $460, and that looks like an 8/5. That's a $275. So no raws out there, just these 3 slab copies for you to choose from. And if you want to see what it actually sells for, the 2 copies that sold the last 3 months sold for a 9/6 best offer on about $270, and there was a raw that sold for a best offer on $80. It's not too bad. definitely not too bad. Now, you might see, like, a lot of these books, even though they're 1 in 50s and they have very low print numbers, there are copies to be had out there. There's copies available and copies that have sold that are not ridiculously priced. We're not talking about these are $1,000 books, few $100 raws. Yes, $80 best offer. We don't know. I don't know offhand what the best offer is, but under $80 for a 1 in 50 is only going to be talking. You're talking about maybe slightly over ratio for a book that's 10 years old at this point, and it is a pretty cool homage and a not easy to find book with a low print run. Not a terrible price, if you ask me. Now, that's our first book to go with this run that we're talking about. Next up, we have Hulk number 42. Hulk number 42, which, if you can't guess here, I'll give you a second, but Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill homage here on the Thor 337, but it's obviously Hulk in this instance. Red Hulk, actually. And once again, 1 in 50 incentive, 2011, November. And estimated print run on this one is a little over 27,000. So that gives our 1 in 50 incentive right around 540 copies. A couple of more than the Deadpool, but really not that many. Estimate 15 more than the other book. Definitely not a lot. Definitely not a lot to work with here. And when we check the census, there are only 14 graded in the census. 698s, 596s, and then a couple of more randos down the list. Now it looks like a 290s and an 85. So definitely not a lot of copies in there. Definitely not a lot of copies graded. You want to see what's for sale on this guy? I only found one, and the price ain't terrible. It's under ratio at $41.47. Granted, there's about $14 shipping because it's coming from the UK, but it's not a terrible price for a 1 in 50. Just saying, if you're curious or if you're interested, it's not too bad. When you want to see what actually sold for this thing, none the last 3 months. Now, is that a product of there just aren't copies out there, or it's just not selling well, as evidenced by that low, buy it now price that nobody's buying it at? Who knows what causes these things to actually have copies on the market and not have copies on the market? Because we're still talking about maybe 500 plus copies, which are not a lot, but still should be enough for a lot of stores and collectors out there to be trying to sell or move their copies to, buy something else. But that being said, this particular book, none sold in the last 3 months, which is going to take us on to Journey into Mystery number 631, which, another homage. You should be able to guess this one too. They're all pretty clear, I think, with the homages. I mean, there's a couple that might be a little tricky, but this is pretty clearly Giant Size X-Men 1, which, again, it's kind of fun. I like the idea of them doing these homages on these anniversary incentives. It's definitely pretty cool. So, this Journey into Mystery book, how many copies are we talking about for this 1 in 50 incentive? Again, 2011, 10 years ago. Just about 10 years ago, again, just over 27,000 copies, which would give us a rough estimate of 543 copies. You see a running theme here. We're just a little over 500 copies for the first 3 that we've looked at so far in this group of incentives. And the census also shows 14 copies on this one too in total. This has 11 9/8s, 2 9/4s, and it looks like an 8/5 are the copies that are in there in that census. Still not a whole bunch. Not a whole bunch. What's actually listed for sale for this one? There are copies. There are copies to be had for this one. I got 5 that I tracked down, ranging from $30 raw to $48 raw, $47 raw, and then some graded copies. Oh, there's a $50 raw, and then looks like a 9/8 for $150 and a 9/8 for $125. Not too bad for a 1 in 50 incentive. That's only slightly over 500 copies printed. Pretty cool homage. Loki on the cover. Thor, Journey into Mystery book. I don't know. It's not too bad, if you ask me. I do not have this book. I would consider it at these prices, but I don't know. This isn't for me to go out there buying as much as I have in researching this. I might say, you know what? Maybe I do want to buy that. I'm just putting this information out there for you guys to make your own decisions and check these books out for yourselves. What's actually sold on this one? Even though there are 5 copies for sale, only 1 sold in the last 3 months, and that one was at auction, and they only got $76 for a 9/8 off of 16 bids, which, again, I can't tell you enough. Do not auction a book that most people aren't aware of, because most cases you're not going to get your money back. Yeah, this was back in June, but I want $76 for a 1 in 50 incentive that has just around 500 copies. Only getting $76. That's It's not too good. It's not too good. I mean, the grading costs alone would have cost you close to half that for the shipping and insurance to and from CGC. But that being said, it is what it is. Sometimes books, go for that cheap. And what are you going to do? Now, the next book that we have on the list is actually one I've got sitting right here next to me. And this was just one of those books that I randomly bought. I actually bought 2 of these online a few years ago just because they were pretty cheap. I liked the cover. They were high incentives. And I said, you know what? For the price, I'm getting them. This Moon Knight #7 is pretty cool to me, at least. I immediately see that it's a Daredevil 1 homage from that Joe Quesada run, when Kevin Smith was writing. I mean, you can see it right there. Definitely a cool homage, one you don't see a lot or all that often. And yeah, there's not too many. There's a good number of Moon Knight variants out there. I know this is one that I had to argue with Marco over because he didn't care for it, but I like this Dodson. This is a Terry Dodson one, and I dig it personally. Again, which is why I bought it, and I bought 2 of them. But also, 1 in 50, November 2011. Same story for all these. Print run, just over 27,000 again, which gives us 543 as my estimate. Yeah, still not a lot of copies. What do we got in the census for this one? 27 copies. Once again, 11 9/8, but this has 7 9/6s, 7 9/4s, and a couple of 9/2s. But 27 in total is a pretty small number still. Pretty small number still. And again, I understand that's not a true gauge of rarity or anything like that. It's just people aren't grading it one reason or another. But if we don't know how many copies are actually printed, we're just going off the estimates provided, and we do our best guess, there still doesn't seem like there's a lot of copies out there. Could be proved wrong, and maybe we see this book pop up in a Walmart pack or something like that with those other ones. But at this point, I kind of doubt it. I mean, it's 10 years old. 10 years old now. So I think if this was going to hit the market in a wave like that, we probably would have seen it already. But hey, who knows? Who knows? That being said, what's out there for sale on this one right now? I found 2 copies. Both pretty close in price, $99.99 raw and $115 raw. 115's got 13 watchers. I'm not seeing watchers on the $100 one, but yeah, only the 2 and $100 plus. It doesn't seem too bad for this book, and that's definitely a lot more than I paid for when I bought mine. So I'm happy to see that. But yeah, who knows? Who knows where this one might go? What actually sold in the last 3 months? I only found one that was a best offer on a $99.99 ask. So who knows? Maybe $80, $90 at best they got for this. Not too bad. Still 1 in 50, 10 years old. Pretty cool cover. Cool homage. I dig it. So we're going to move on to our next book, which I think is the 6th in our run here. And this is a Punisher. Punisher #5. And once again, you can probably guess the homage just by looking at the covers. This is one that's been done before. This is not a unique one, but New Mutants 87, it's clearly there in this Punisher. Then you got those little circles, the targets, and everything. But here comes a man named Castle. So Punisher #5, once again, 1 in 50, November 2011. What are we looking at for the print run on this? A little over 25,000. So that's going to take us on the lower end of 507 copies with my estimate. And then we look at the census. What do we got in the census on this guy? 31 copies for this one. 23 9/8, 6 9/6s, and then 2 9/4s. Still pretty small numbers. So far, through these books that we've done, Deadpool's been the highest in the 70s. But that's Deadpool. Deadpool's a more popular character, and I'm sure a lot of people like the Spidey homage. But 74 still is less than 20% of the estimated run. So not a lot of copies in the census for any of these so far. What's for sale for this Punisher? Punisher's got a handful here. Got 4. Right around that $50 range for the 3 raws, and then there's a 9/8 list for $250. So looks about ratio for raw, and then the 9/8 is $250. That seems to make sense. That seems to kind of jibe with most of the prices I kind of see these days as far as 9/8 to raw goes for an incentive book like this. Something about that Journey into Mystery, though, is still kind of making me scratch my head. Like, why is it only a little over 100 for a 9/8 for a 1 in 50 incentive? It's just not computing. I don't know. Key's not turning for some reason. But we see what actually sold for this Punisher book. Nothing. Nothing to point back to as far as recent sales go in the last 3 months. So those 4 copies are sitting out there with none moved in the last 3 months on eBay at the very least. I mean, could have been moving at shows or on other online places, but on eBay, I got nothing to show you. Which will take us to our next book, Thunderbolts, number 166. You know, see Cap there, you see Luke Cage. Cover looks kind of familiar, at least the posing goes. Not a huge fan of how this one was executed, but I do love the inspiration, which is Uncanny X-Men, 268. This Jim Lee cover is hard to duplicate, and I appreciate them trying to emulate it, but it's just not hitting the mark quite for me personally. But I like the attempt. And Scott Williams did one recently that I kind of dig in one of the recent, I think, IG Comic Store variants, which was kind of cool. But so this Thunderbolts 166 is again 1 in 50 incentive, going back to 2011. Print run on this book is way down about 22,680, which is going to get us under 500 with our incentive. We're talking about 453 potential copies for this book. It's getting really low now. We're talking about under 500 copies for this guy. And we look at what's in the census. We only got 9, 798s, and 296s. Numbers are getting smaller here, just by happenstance. And when we look at what's actually listed for sale, there's one. It's $90 for a 9.8. Seems low. Seems low to me. Just saying. 1 in 50, 450 copies, only 9 in the census. $90 for a 9.8. Seems low. But we compare it to what actually sold recently. We can't because none sold. This is just, again, well, some of these books, they just don't have a lot of copies out there, nor do they have a lot of copies moving. So regardless of how high the prices might be or low the prices might be, there's still not a lot of options for you out there if you want to buy. So you could say you don't think it's a ghost because you can get one, but in this case, you can only get one. There's one out there for you to grab if you want it. That's it. Once that one's gone, who knows when we're going to see another one. Just saying. Which is going to take us on to our next book. I think I might be wrong with my count. I don't know where we're at as far as number-wise, but I know I still got a couple left because next up we got Venom number 9. And this is not the Venom number 9 versus Dylan Brock or anything like that from that newer series. This is, again, going back to 2011. But if you don't know what this cover's from, I'm going to show you. Origin, issue 2. Issue 2, The Origin of Wolverine. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that storyline. I liked it better when his past was an unknown, but what are you going to do? It's canon. It's canon now. So James Howlett, he is great. But still, Venom, pretty cool homage to it, right? With the clawed hand. Definitely kind of dig it. And Venom sells better, right? Definitely it's a better selling title than some of the others. But still a 1 in 50 incentive. Still 10 years ago, November 2011. As I said, 32,000 plus on this one as far as the estimated print run goes. So that's 10,000 more than that Thunderbolts that we just looked at. So that gives our incentive at about 650 copies as opposed to the 450 we had on the last one. Significant difference. Definitely significant difference. But when we look at the census, it's still not a ton. I mean, 59. It's a bigger number, 59 total in the census, but 35 9/8s, 13 9/6s, and then a few others scattered around the way there. But still, under 60 copies in the census is not a whole heck of a lot for a 1 in 50 incentive book on a title like Venom. But when we look at what's actually listed for sale on this one, since it's Venom, it's definitely a little bit more popular. And we can see here, there's 5 copies right there. Looks like well, no, there's one raw at the bottom there, $70. But then we got a 9.4 for 150, a 9.6 for 230, and then 2 9/8s, one at $215 and one at $250. And you can see a couple of those got the little My Comic Shop little sticker on there, so you know where those ones could be found. So another tip is you can save yourself a little bit on the fees and just go buy it directly on the My Comic Shop website because they don't have the little premium that you have to pay to have it listed on eBay since eBay's going to charge them, to sell on the site. Just in case you weren't aware of that. It's just a little friendly piece of advice. But what do we see sold for this book? This book, in the last 3 months, we got 2 copies sold. A Raw sold for close to $150, and then a 9.6 sold for only $100. But it was at auction. Telling you, you're gambling when you throw a book like this up for auction. Just saying. So you're better off just listening to buying now and being patient. But that being said, still, only 2 copies sold over 3 months isn't a whole heck of a lot either. Definitely not a lot of copies there either. But that's going to take us to, I believe, our last book, which is X-23, number 15, which, in case you weren't sure, yes, this is Daredevil 181. Classic issue. Bullseye, you know what happens in the book, but not to say that's going to happen in the X-23 book. It's just the cover. But Daredevil, Bullseye, Elektra, classic Daredevil book from the Frank Miller run. Definitely one you should get on its own, but it's kind of fun seeing it homaged here on this X-23 book with, basically Daken versus X-23 and then Wolverine behind him. Now, last book, again, 1 in 50 incentive, November 2011. So print run on this is back down to the Thunderbolts realm in a little over 22,000 or just under 23,000 in this case. So that's going to give us an incentive roughly 454 copies. So this one is also under the $500 copy mark. And not too many in the census, but by comparison to some of the others, a solid amount. I think it's an X book. You got Wolverine, you're talking X-23, so more people get these things graded than others, but still, only 57 total in the census, 25 9/8, 15 9/6, and then a handful of others scattered around the other grades. But 57 total still ain't that much when you're considering a 450 print run, thereabouts. Again, estimate. But what's listed for sale? Again, since it's a more popular title, more people are aware. So there are more copies listed, but this one is not listed for cheap. This one is listed pretty pricey. You can see $1,500 at the top there for a 9.8. Looks like a 9.4 for $630. There's a 9.6 for $525. 450, $375, and $200 for Raws on the bottom 3 there. So 6 copies available right now. Cheapest one being a $200 Raw, thereabouts. But you can go up and pay up if you really want to get that 9.8 for $1,500. Have at it. But you can see here, print runs and character make a difference. So this one is a bit pricier than the rest. It's really, supply and demand. So I guess nobody likes Journey into Mystery, which is why that one's super cheap, despite it having a very similar print run. And we see what actually sold for this one. None. Given those prices, those 6 listed have probably been listed there for at least the 6 months, and none have sold. So still, 6 ain't a lot of copies. 6 still ain't a lot of copies. But I'm trying to be a little more cognizant of what I'm calling Ghost and what I'm not calling Ghost. So my gut feeling on this grouping is these 4. Journey into Mystery, the Punisher, the Venom, and the X-23, simply due to the fact that there are more than 3 copies available for you to go buy right now if you wanted to at this time, if you go hit up eBay, since you can get a copy if you wanted to, and it's only the price that may be restricting you from doing so in the case of like X-23, but no excuse on the Journey into Mystery. I'm just going to call these hard to find. Plus, we got to split this thing up anyway. I can't say everything's Ghost. I guess I could, but I'm not going to. So that's where we're at, which is going to leave us with our other 4, the Deadpool, the Hulk, the Moon Knight, and the Thunderbolts, getting that Ghost distinction, mostly because while there have only been 3 copies at most, I believe, sold for any of these over the last 3 months, if we're just going off of copies available, these all had 3 or less available at the moment. So using that kind of qualification for this week, at least, I mean, this is a sliding scale. I could change the way I think about this next week. But for right now, that's what I went with to make the distinction between these 8. So I am comfortable calling these 4 Ghosts, while the other 4 simply hard to find. Now, feel free to disagree. Tell me what you think. Check out some of the other books in this collection of books. Because again, I only went with the lowest printed or lowest estimated printing of the groupings. There's some that have like 1,500 copies or 1,000 copies of some of the better selling titles, but it is definitely a cool set of covers. I will share the link. There's a comicbookinvest.com article that covers all of these. I'll share the link down below in the in the body and the description. So you can go check out all the books if you want to go and take a look at what else is out there in this 50th anniversary set. And yeah, definitely check that out, as well as all the other great content over there on comicbookinvest.com. That being said, thank you for stopping by. Hopefully you enjoyed this supersized edition of Chasing Ghosts, where I just cover these 50th anniversary 1 in 50 homages. And yeah, I'll have something different for you next week, and I will talk to you guys later.